Good afternoon, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane and Hurricane HD video blog. Now for Monday, August 13th, 2012. First stop today, a look at the Southern Oscillation Index, or the SOI. Basically, I'm looking to see how these numbers, how close they're getting to -8. -8 seems to be the minus magic number, that's right. The Bureau of Meteorology talks about that -8 is typical of an El Nino state of the atmosphere. As we can see, the 30-day average is -7.6, the 90-day average -7.7. You can just round those up to or down to, however you look at it, -8, and the daily contributor a whopping -24. This basically means that the pressure pattern across the tropical Pacific here is such that the trade winds are going to be lessening across the tropics here. Okay, they're going to be slowing down, and that will allow for more warming to take place. And in some cases, we'll even reverse the trade winds, and we'll get some westerly winds, what's called a westerly wind burst, coming across the tropical Pacific here, and that'll really help to accelerate the warming of this El Nino that is trying to show up. Now in the eastern Pacific, we do see colder than normal temperatures starting to come in again near the Galapagos and points west ever so slightly. You know, it might be temporary, it might be a dent in the overall El Nino pattern, but the longer term average here is for the entire tropical Pacific, especially now out in the central Pacific, to start warming, and that'll eventually start having some impacts on the Atlantic hurricane season, if not already. It's just really hard to quantify how it's doing so, but typically you get all this warm water out here with upward motion and convective activity, and then you get strong upper level winds that cut across the tropics like this through the Caribbean and the deep tropics out here in the Atlantic, and that chops the tops off of westward moving tropical storms, hurricanes, tropical waves, things like that. We're not really seeing those strong upper level winds as of yet. We'll see, maybe they'll start to come and we will really put the brakes on the season. Even though things are quiet now, it may be, who knows, that it stays this way for some time to come, but you never know. It's still not quite the peak time of the hurricane season yet. We still have another, probably 60 days or more to go. Looking at heat content in the Atlantic, this is the true measure of how much energy is in the oceans. Pretty good area right off the Carolinas and Georgia of increased heat content here, getting into the lower to middle part of the scale. The usual high heat content areas of the Caribbean and Gulf. But notice right here in the tropical Atlantic, this bite that's taken out. This is last year, and right now, this is all missing in here, okay? So I'm going to go back a frame, and you'll notice that that's all gone this year. So you take away some out in the tropical Atlantic, you add a little bit off the east coast. None of this really matters too much if you don't have any hurricanes, obviously. We know that 80 degrees or so Fahrenheit is the magic temperature that we're looking for across the Atlantic basin and anywhere in the tropics. And everywhere out here is 80 plus. So it's more of a matter of, are the thermodynamics of the atmosphere going to allow anything to develop? That is to say, is the atmosphere going to be conducive? And right now, it's not. And we'll take a closer look at that via satellite picture in just a moment. Notice this little area off of Florida of blue. This is an actual sea surface temperature map, not a departure from normal or an anomaly. This, though, the cold water here, because of southwest winds blowing across and then pushing the water away from Florida, whereas conversely on the other side here near Tampa and up along the Nature Coast down towards Fort Myers, the water is warm because that same southwest flow is piling the water up against Florida, where warm water is everywhere. It tends to increase there, so you get upwelling and cold water on the east side, and then warm water piling up and accumulating on the west side. So if you're over here, let's say near Flagler Beach, take a trip over to Tarpon Springs and vicinity, and you'll be in basically bath water. The rest of the Gulf, very, very warm, as indicated by the yellows and the oranges. We're talking upper 80s for the surface temperatures of the Gulf there. Looking out at the Atlantic Basin, both of these areas fairly inconsequential for development. A little tropical wave coming off of Africa that is going to struggle. Why? Because look at this. a water vapor shot, dry air dominates just about the entire basin. Dry, 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 dry. It's just too much dry air. A lid, literally put on top of the pot, and you're not going to allow it to do much boiling. Now, will the fire underneath the pot overwhelm everything and make the lid blow off? Well, that's an interesting analogy, but we'll have to wait and see. This dry air is a dominant feature, and it could take a lot for it to mix out, and it may never do so. Remember, this was a big problem last year for tropical cyclones. Great for people, even as bad as Irene was, for example, and Lee for the U.S., two major flooding events. It could have been a lot worse had vertical instability issues or dry air not been so prevalent. So we'll have to wait and see if this pattern changes. Right now, I don't see any indication of such, at least over the next week. In the Eastern Pacific, speaking of weak, Hector is weakening. Different form of the word weak here. Try it though. It looks like a comet, doesn't it? There's the center, and then everything's kind of blowing away. It has easterly shear impacting it. And then another disturbance down here, I believe this is 95E. It probably is not going to develop too much. Even though you've got general low pressure around this area and a nice monsoon flow, it's just, there's something missing out here too. Upper level wind's a little too strong. And maybe, just maybe, once the Eastern Pacific shuts down, the Atlantic basin will start to come to life. Not that anybody is necessarily chomping at the bit to see that. They're kind of interesting to track, right? But not so much to impact your house. They don't become very fun at that point, that's for sure. So there you go, a look at the tropics for the first day of the week. Nothing brewing out there to get anybody upset about, and it'll probably be that way for at least the next few days. Nevertheless, we'll keep looking at things on a day-by-day basis. Again, I'm Mark Sudduth, my website, hurricanetrack.com. So glad I could provide these videos to Hurricane and Hurricane HD, and I'll be back again with another one tomorrow.